everyone, I'm Neil Patrick Machico, and together with my group mates, we will be reporting International Business Function. Hope you learn something from our report.
Good day everyone, I will be reporting Chapter 16, Exporting, Importing, and Counter Trade. Exporting is one of the first steps in a global expansion strategy. The strategy usually evolves around the manufacturing sector, but could apply to the exporting of services like consulting. However, another aspect would be importing. Again, more focused on the manufacturing sector, there are many products made in the US that contain components for manufacturer outside of the US. The exposure to foreign imports could lead a management team to consider locating a manufacturing facility overseas in order to be closer to some of its significant customers. Finally, counter trade still exists in the global economy, but more at the government level, which I will discuss shortly. So, what is exporting? Majority of all companies engaged in the global marketplace export. It requires a low commitment and is referred by many small and medium-sized enterprises. The volume of exporting has increased over the years due to two factors. One, a decline in trade barriers and increase in regional economic agreements, and two, advances in technology and communication. Yet today the prospect of exporting remains intimidating for many companies. For the product readiness, it involves asking, is your product or service ready to be exported? What international customer need does your product satisfy? Is the product satisfied for your value chain? Company readiness involves asking, is the company ready to export the product? Do you have the top-level commitment, resources, skills, and knowledge? Is your company ready to import the product? Do you have the top-level commitment, resources, skills, and knowledge to import? In the area of global finance, due to the financial risk associated with exporting, company readiness should be the focus. The success or financial reward for pursuing exporting opportunities hinges on these determinants. Competitive capabilities in the domestic market, motivation for growing international, commitment of the owners and top management, experience, training and skills, knowledge and resources. Is there a need to develop an export strategy? The short answer, yes. However, there is more to it. Without a strategy, it will become a shotgun approach with no direction and focus, and possibly leading the company to financial losses. A well-export strategy will include all or parts of the following. 1. Recognize the time and managerial commitment involved in building export sales and hire additional personnel to oversee this activity without recognizing the need for management. Commitment and focus, there will be no export strategy. 2. Initially focus on one market or a handful of markets. 3. Enter a foreign market on a small scale to reduce the cost of any subsequent failure. 4. Hire an EMC or what we call the export management company or at least an experienced export consultant to identify opportunities and navigate the paperwork and regulations in exporting. Once the export strategy is developed, comes the hardest part, the execution. To ensure a high degree of success in executing the export strategy, these steps need to be taken. 1. Devote attention to building a strong and enduring relationship with your local distributors and or customers. 2. Hire local personnel to help the firm establish itself in a foreign market. 3. Be proactive about seeking export opportunities. And 4. Retain the option of local production if appropriate. Does one need an export strategy? Finally, one of the most important aspects of developing an export strategy is trust and ethical behavior. Companies engaging in international trade eventually have to trust someone, and it is someone who they may have just recently met, who live in a different country, who may or may not speak your language, who abides or does not abide by a different legal system, who abides by a different morality code, and who could be very difficult to track down if she or he defaults on an obligation. So for the exporting company, knowing that they will receive funds should they complete their obligations and they under the sale as an amount. There are several methods to ensure the receipt of funds from someone who you probably have not met except via email, phone, or the internet. One of the most common and easiest methods of export financing is a letter of credit. With this method, a bank will pay by a specified sum of money to a beneficiary, normally the export. On the presentation of a particular specified document, the key here is to use a reputable bank and one that is intimately knowledgeable of the export credit market. So different than a letter of credit, a bill of exchange is used to settle trade transactions. In domestic transactions, the buyer can often obtain possession of the merchandise without signing a formal document acknowledging his or her obligation to pay. However, in international transactions, payment or a formal promise to pay is required before the buyer can obtain the merchandise. Drafts fall into two categories: sight drafts and time drafts. A sight draft is payable on presentation to the drawee. On the other hand, the time draft allows for a delay in payment, usually in increments of 30 days up to 120 days. This allows the importer an opportunity to receive the goods, to sell the goods, and to collect money so that payment can be made to the exporting company. A key feature to the time draft is its negotiability once it has been accepted by the bank, and then it becomes known as a banker's acceptance. A bill lading has three purposes: a contract, a receipt, and a document of title. As a receipt, the bill of lading indicates that the carrier has received the merchandise described on the face of the document. As a contract, it specifies that the carrier is obligated to provide a transportation service in return for a certain charge. As a document of title, it can be used to obtain payment or a written promise of payment before the merchandise is released to the importer. The bill of lading can also function as collateral against which funds may be advanced to the exporter by its local bank before or during shipment and before final payment by the importer. Let's move on to counter trade. Counter trade means exchanging goods or services which are paid for in whole or in part with other goods or services rather than with money. A monetary evaluation can, however, be used in counter trade for accounting purposes. In dealing between sovereign states, the term bilateral trade is used. With its roots in the simple trading of goods and services for other goods and services, counter trade has evolved into a diverse set of activities that can be categorized as 5 distinct types of trading arrangement, such as barter, counter purchase, offset, switch trading, and compensation, or what we call the buyback. Any counter trade deals involve not just one arrangement but elements of 2 or more. First is the barter. It is the direct exchange of goods and or services between two parties without a cash transaction. Although barter is the simplest arrangement, it is not common. Its problems are twofold. First, if goods are not exchanged simultaneously, one party ends up financing the other for a period. Second, firms engaged in barter run the risk of having to accept goods they do not want, cannot use, or have difficulty reselling at a reasonable price. For these reasons, barter is viewed as the most restrictive counter trade arrangement. It is primarily used for one-time only deals in transaction with trading partners who are not creditworthy or trustworthy. Next is the counter purchase. Counter purchase, it is a reciprocal buying agreement. It occurs when a firm agrees to purchase a certain amount of materials back from a country to which a sale is made. Third is offset. It is similar to a counter purchase insofar as one party agreed to purchase goods and services with a specified percentage of the proceeds from the original sale. The difference is that this party can fulfill the obligation with any firm in the country to which the sale is being made. Next is switch trading. The term switch trading refers to the use of specialized third-party trading trading house in a counter-trade arrangement. When a firm enters a counter-purchase or offset agreement with a country, it often ends up with what we are called counter-purchase credits, which can be used to purchase goods from that country. Switch trading occurs when a third-party trading house buys the firm's counter-purchase credits and sells them to another firm that can better use them. And finally, the compensation or buyback. It occurs when a firm builds a plant in a country or supplies technology, equipment, training, or other services to the country and agrees to take a certain percentage of the plant output as partial payment for the contracts.
Good day everyone, I am Erica May A. Chavez from BSBA. I am the reporter of Chapter 17, which is Global Supply Chain Management. Alibaba Global Supply Chain was founded in 1999 by Jack Ma. So now, what is a global supply chain? Global supply chains are networks that can span across multiple continents and countries for the purpose of sourcing and supplying goods and services. Global supply chains involve the flow of information, processes, and resources across the globe. Global logistics, when the earlier on this chapter. The three core activities in the logistics, which is global distribution center, global inventory management, and packaging. We know the logistics is the part of supply chain that plans and implement an effective for raw materials. First, a global distribution center is a facility that positions and allows customization of products for delivery to worldwide. Second, the inventory management can review its decision-making process regarding the raw materials. The decision includes how much to hold it and each form to hold it and where to locate in the supply chain. Last, the packaging counts to all shapes, sizes, forms, and uses. It can be derived into three. It can be divided into three different types: primary, secondary, and transit. First, the primary packaging, which is hold the product itself. Next, the secondary packaging. It contains the several packaging. Last, the transit packaging, when it counts primary and secondary are assembled in a pallet or unit load for transportation.
Hi, I'm Donna. I will continue the report chapter 17, which is about global production and supply chain management. As trade barriers fall and global markets develop, many firms increasingly confront a set of interrelated issues. First, where in the world should production activities be located? Single country strategies may be efficient operationally but oftentimes become ineffective strategically. For example, what if the company focused all of its attention on one country for production and that country became politically or economically unstable? Some redundancy is usually the best approach in both global production and supply chain management practices, and such redundancy often demands that a company spreads its productions and supply chain across countries. Second, what should be the long-term strategic role of foreign production site? Should the firm abandon a foreign site, it factor cost change, moving production to another more favorable location, or is it the value to maintaining an operation at a given location even if underlying economic condition change? Value can come from cost inefficiencies. Moving factory location from one country to another solely due to cost consideration is usually not a strategic move. Successful companies typically evaluate cost considerations along with quality, flexibility, and time issues. At the same time, cost is one of the most important considerations and serves as the starting point for discussion of making a strategic move from one country to a more advantageous production home. Third, should the firm own foreign production activities, or is it better to outsource those activities to independent vendors? Outsourcing means less control, but it can be cost efficient. Fourth, how should a globally dispersed supply chain be managed, and what is the role of information technology in the management of global logistics, purchasing or sourcing, and operation. Fifth, similar to issues of production, should the company manage global supply itself, or should it outsource the management to enterprises that specialize in this activity? There are many options for supply chain management by third parties. Few companies want to manage the full supply chain from raw material to delivering the product to end customer. The question, though, is what portion of supply chain should be managed by third parties and what portion should be managed by the company itself. How are strategy, production, and logistic related? In productions, activities involved in creating a product, while logistics, procurement and physical transmission of material through the supply chain from suppliers to customers. How can quality be improved? Most firms use the Six Sigma program, a direct descendant of Total Quality Management or TQM. Aims to reduce defects, boost productivity, eliminate waste, and cut costs throughout the company. In the EU, firms met ISO 9000 standards before gaining access to the EU marketplace, and losses the improved quality reduces cost. How can quality be improved? As you can see, this is the relationship between quality and cost. First, you need to improve performance reliability. To improve performance reliability, it requires increases productivity, lowers rework scrap cost, and lowers warranty cost. Increases productivity and lowers rework will lower manufacturing cost, and lower warranty cost will lower service cost, and this too will be increases profits. Where should production be located? Firms should locate production so that production and logistics can be locally responsive, and production and logistics can respond quickly to shift in customers' demand. And these are the firms should consider. Number 1 is the country factors, 2 is technological factors, and 3 is the product factors. Why are country factors important? Manufacturing should be located where economic, political, and cultural conditions are most conducive to the performance of that activity. And the activities are: create a global web of activities, global concentration activities of certain locations. Why are technological factors are important? And this is the firm should consider. Number 1 is the level of fixed cost, 2 the minimum efficient scale, and the last is the flexibility of the technology. What should a firm do? Production should be concentrated in a few locations when fixed costs are substantial and the minimum efficient scale of production is high and flexible manufacturing technologies are available. Production in multiple locations makes sense when both fixed and cost minimum efficient scale of production are relatively low. Appropriate flexible and manufacturing technologies are not available. Why are product factors important to locations decisions? 2 product factors impact locations decision. Number 1 is the product value to weight ratio. If the value to weight ratio is high, produce the product in a single location and export to other parts of the world. Then, if the value to weight ratio is low, there is greater pressure to manufacture the products in multiple locations across the world. 2 is whether the product serves universal needs. When product serves universal needs, the need for local responsiveness falls and concentrating manufacturing in a central location makes sense. How are location, strategy, and production related? As you can see in the table, here contains the location, strategy, and production. In the first row, you will see the 3 factors which are country factors, technological factors, and product factors. Then in the second row, you will see the concentrated production favored, and in the third row is the decentralized production favored. What is the strategic role of foreign factories? The strategic role of foreign factories and the strategic advantage of a particular location can change over time. Factories established to take advantage of low cost labor can evolve into facilities with advanced design capabilities. Many companies now see foreign factories as globally dispersed centers to excellence to support the development of a transnational strategy and global learning. Should a firm outsource production? Question. Should a firm make or buy the component parts to go into its final product? Make or buy decisions are important to firms' manufacturing strategies. Service firms also face make or buy decisions. Decisions involving international markets are more complex than those involving domestic markets. Should a firm outsource productions? In vertical integration, making component parts in-house. Number 1 is the lower cost. 2. Facilities investments in highly specialized assets. 3. Protects proprietary technology. 4th is the facilities the scheduling of adjacent processes. Buying components from independent suppliers or give the firm greater flexibility helps drive down the firm's cost structures and helps the firm capture orders from international customers. Do strategic alliances with suppliers make sense? Firms can capture the benefits of vertical integrations without associated organizational programs by forming long-term strategic alliances with key suppliers. However, these commitments may actually limit strategic flexibility, risk giving away key technological know-how to supplies.
Chapter 17: Global Marketing and R&D. Marketing mix. The marketing mix is comprised of a product attributes, distribution strategy, communication strategy, and pricing strategy. Next is market segmentation. Market segmentation involves identifying distinct groups of consumers whose purchasing behavior differs from others in important ways. Markets can be segmented by geography, demography, and sociocultural factors and psychological factors. Next is product attributes. A product is like a bundle of attributes. Products sell well when their attributes match consumer needs. If consumer needs were the same everywhere, a firm could sell the same product worldwide. But consumer needs vary from country to country depending on culture, level of economic development, and other factors. Next is distribution strategy. A firm's distribution strategy is a critical element of the marketing mix. Product distribution depends on the firm market entry strategy. Firms that manufacture the product locally can sell directly to the consumer, to the retailer or the wholesaler. Firms that manufacture outside the country have the same option plus the option of selling to an important agent. Next is choosing a distribution strategy. The optimal strategy depends on the relative cost and benefits of each alternative. Each intermediary in a channel adds its own markup to the products. There is generally a critical link between channel length and the firm profit margin. When price is important, a shorter channel is better. A long channel can be beneficial because it economizes or selling costs when the retail sector is very fragmented and can offer access to exclusive channels. Next is barriers to international communication. The effectiveness of firm international communication can be challenged by cultural barriers, source and country of original effects, and noise level. Cultural barriers, it can be difficult to communicate message across cultures. A message that means one thing in one country may mean something quite different in another. To overcome cultural barriers, firms needs to develop cross-cultural literacy and use local input when developing marketing message. Second is source and country of origin effects. Source effects occur when the receiver of the message evaluates the message on the basis of status or image of the sender. Films can counter negative source effects by de-emphasizing their foreign origins. Last is noise level. Noise refers to the amount of other messages competing for a potential consumer attention. In highly developed countries, noise is very high. In developing countries, noise level tend to be lower. Next is push versus pull strategies. Firms have to choose between two types of communication. A push strategy emphasizes personal selling. A pull strategy emphasizes mass media advertising. The choice between the strategies depends upon product type and consumer sophistication, channel length, and media availability. The product type and consumer sophistication, firms in consumer goods industries that are trying to sell to a large market segment usually use a pull strategy. Firms that sell industrial products typically prefer a push strategy. Second is channel length. A pull strategy can work better with longer distribution channels. And last, media availability. A pull strategy relies on access to advertising media when media is not easily available. A push strategy may be more attractive. In general, a push strategy is better for industrial product and complex new products when distribution channels are short, when few print or electronic media are available. A pull strategy is better for consumer goods products when distribution channels are long, when sufficient print and electronic media are available to carry the marketing message. Next is global advertising. Standardizing advertising worldwide has both pros and cons. Standardized advertising makes sense when it has significant economic advantage, creative talent is scarce, and one large effort to develop a campaign will be more successful than numerous smaller efforts, and brand names are global. Standardized advertising does not make sense when significant cultural difference among nations, country difference in advertising regulation block the implementation of standardized advertising. Some firms use tactics to capture the benefits of global standardization while responding to individual cultural and legal environment. Some features of a campaign are standardized while others are customized to local markets. Next is pricing strategy.
So this is the continuation about the global marketing and the R&D. So now we will talk about the pricing strategy. International pricing is an important element in the marketing mix. There are three issues to consider: the case of price discrimination, strategic pricing, regulations that affect pricing decisions. Price discrimination occurs when firms charge consumers in different countries different prices for the same product. Firms using price discrimination hope it will boost profits. For price discrimination to work, the firm must be able to keep national markets separate. Different price elasticity of demand must exist in different countries. Strategic pricing. Strategic pricing has three aspects, and those are the predatory pricing, multi-point pricing, experience curve pricing. Predatory pricing involves using the profit gain in one market to support aggressive pricing design to drive competitors out in another market. After the competitors have left, the firm will raise prices. Multi-point pricing. Multi-point pricing refers to the fact that a firm using pricing strategy in one market may have an impact on rivals' pricing strategy in another market. Aggressive pricing in one market may elicit a competitive response from a rival in another critical market. Experience curve pricing. Firms that are further along the experience curve have a cost advantage relative to firms further up the curve. Firms pursuing an experience curve pricing strategy price lower buy in attempt to build global sales volumes as rapidly as possible, even this means taking large losses initially. Regulatory influence on prices. The use of either price discrimination or strategic pricing may be limited by national or international regulations. A firm's ability to set its own prices may be limited by anti-dumping regulations, competition policy. Anti-dumping regulations occurs when a firm sells a product for a price that is less than the cost of producing it. Anti-dumping rules set a floor under export prices and limit a firm's ability to pursue strategic pricing. Competition policy. Most industrialized nations have regulations designed to promote competition and restrict monopoly practices, can limit the price that a firm can charge. Configuring the marketing mix. Standardization versus customization is not an all-or-nothing concept. Most firms standardize some things and customize others. Firms should consider the costs and benefits of standardizing and customizing each element of the marketing mix. New product development. Competition is as much about technological innovation and anything else. Pace of technological change is faster than ever. Product life cycles are often very short. Companies need to make product innovation a priority. Requires close links between R&D, marketing, and manufacturing. Locations of R&D. New product ideas came from the interaction of scientific research, demand conditions, and competitive conditions. The rate of new product development is greater in countries where large investments basic or applied R&D. Demand is strong, consumers are affluent, competition is intense. Integrating R&D, marketing, and production. New product development has high failure rate. To reduce the chance of failure, new product development efforts should involve close coordination between R&D, marketing, and production. The integration will ensure that customer needs drive product development. New products are designed for ease of manufacture. Development costs are kept in check. Time to market minimized. Cross-functional teams. Cross-functional teams integration is facilitated by cross-functional product development. Led by a project manager with status in the organization, include members from all the critical functional areas. Have members located together, establish clear goals, develop an effective conflict resolution process. Building global R&D capabilities to adequately commercialize new technologies, firms need to integrate R&D and marketing. Commercialization of new technologies may require firms to develop different versions for different countries. These may require R&D centers in North America, Asia, and Europe that are closely linked by formal and informal integrating mechanisms with marketing operation in each country in their regions and with the various manufacturing facilities.
Global Human Resource Management. Human Resource Management, or HRM, refers to the activities an organization carries out to use its human resources effectively. These activities include determining the firm's human resource strategy, staffing, performance evaluation, management development, compensation, and labor relations. Taken together, these activities determine how an international business builds and manages its global workforce. HRM has an important strategic component. Through its influence on the character, development, quality, and productivity of the firm's human resources, the HRM function can help the firm achieve its primary strategic goals of reducing the cost of value creation and adding value by better serving customers. Sodexo believes that workforce diversity helps the company to connect with its client, recruit talent, improve decision-making, and generate innovative solutions, all of which enables the company to attain a competitive advantage in the different national markets where it competes. The strategic role of HRM is complex enough in a purely domestic firm, but it is more complex in an international business, where staffing, management development, performance evaluation, and compensation activities are complicated by profound differences between countries in labor markets, culture, legal systems, economic systems, and the like. For example, compensation practices may vary from country to country, depending on prevailing management customs. Labor laws may prohibit union organization in one country and mandate it in another. Equal employment legislation may be strongly pursued in one country and not in another. Ethnic and cultural realities may require some modification of company policies. HRM function must deal with a host of issues. It must decide how staff key management posts in the company, how to develop managers so they are familiar with the nuances of doing business in different countries, how to compensate people in different nations, and how to evaluate performance of managers based in different countries. HRM must also deal with a myriad of issues related to expatriate managers. An expatriate manager is a citizen of one country who is working abroad in one of the firm's subsidiaries. Next one is strategic role of global HRM, managing a global workforce. For a firm to outperform its rivals in the global marketplace, it must have the right people in the right postings. Those people must have trained appropriately so they have the skill sets required to perform their jobs effectively and so that they behave in a manner that is congruent with the desired culture of the firm. Their compensation packages must create incentives for them to take actions that are consistent with the strategy of the firm, and the performance appraisal system the firm uses must have measured the behavior that the firm wants to encourage. HRM functions through its staffing, training and compensation, and performance appraisal policies, has a critical impact on the people, culture, incentive, and control system elements of the firm's organizational architecture. HRM professionals have critically important strategic role. It is an incumbent of them to shape these elements of a firm's organizational architecture in a manner that it is consistent with the strategy of the enterprise so that the firm can effectively implement its strategy. In short, superior human resource management can be a sustained source of high productivity and a competitive advantage in a global economy. At the same time, research suggests that many international businesses have room for improving the effectiveness of the HRM function. Next is staffing policy. Staffing policy is concerned with the selection of employees for jobs. At one level, this involves selecting individuals who have the skills required to do jobs. At another level, staffing policy can be a tool for developing and promoting the desired corporate culture of the firm. The types of staffing policies. Research had identified 3 types of staffing policies in international businesses. First is the ethnocentric approach. The ethnocentric staffing policy is one of which all key management positions are filled by parent country nationals. This practice was widespread at one time. Firms such as Procter & Gamble, Philips, and Panasonic originally followed it. Firms pursue ethnocentric staffing policy for 3 reasons. First, the firm may believe that the host country lacks qualified individuals to fill senior management positions. This argument is heard most often when the firm has operation in less developed countries. Second, the firm may see the ethnocentric staffing policy as the best way to maintain a unified corporate culture. Third, if the firm is trying to create value by transferring core competencies to a foreign operation, as firms pursuing an international strategy It may believe that the best way to do this transfer parent country nationals who have knowledge of that competency to foreign operation. Next is the polycentric approach. The polycentric staffing policy requires host country nationals to be recruited to manage subsidiaries, while parenting country nationals occupy key positions at corporate headquarters. In many respects, a polycentric approach is a response to the shortcomings of an ethnocentric approach. One advantage of adopting polycentric approach is that the firm is less likely to suffer for cultural myopia. Host country managers are unlikely to make the mistakes arising from cultural misunderstandings, to which expatriate managers are vulnerable. A second advantage is that a polycentric approach may be less expensive to implement, reducing the cost of value creation. A polycentric approach has its drawbacks. Host country nationals have limited opportunities to gain experience outside their country and thus cannot progress beyond senior positions in their own subsidiary. The third one is the geocentric approach. The geocentric staffing policy seeks the best people for key jobs throughout the organization, regardless of nationality. This policy has a few advantages. First, it enables the firm to make the best use of its human resources. Second, and perhaps more important, a geocentric policy enables the firm to believe a cadre of international executives who feel at home working in several cultures. A geocentric staffing policy can also be expensive to implement. Training and relocation costs increase when transferring managers from country to country. The next one is the expatriate failure. Rates expatriate failure represents a failure of the firm's selections policy to identify individuals who will not thrive abroad. The consequences include premature return from a foreign posting and high resignation rate, with expatriates leaving their company at about twice the rate of the domestic managers. The inability to expatriate managers to adjust to foreign posting seems to be caused by a lack of cultural skills on the part of managers being transferred. According to one HRM consulting firm, this is because the expatriate selection process at many firms is fundamentally flawed. Expatriate assignments rarely fail because of the person cannot accommodate to the technical demands of the job. Typically, the expatriate selections are made by line managers based on technical competence. They fail because of family and personal issues and lack of cultural skills that haven't been part of the selection process. Expatriate selection. One way to reduce expatriate failure rates is by proving selection producers to screen out inappropriate candidates. The four dimensions that global human resource seem to predict success in a foreign posting: self-orientation, others orientation, perceptual ability, and cultural toughness. First is self-orientation. The attributes of this dimension strengthen the expatriate's self-esteem, self-confidence, and mental well-being. Expatriates with high self-esteem, self-confidence, and mental well-being were more likely to succeed in foreign postings. Next is other orientation. The attributes of this dimension enhance the expatriate's ability to interact effectively with the host country nationals. The more effectively the expatriate interacts with the host country nationals, the more likely he or she is to succeed. The third one is the perceptual ability. This is the ability to understand why people of other countries have the way they do, that is the ability to empathize. This dimension seems too critical for managing a host country nationals. Expatriate managers who lack this ability tend to treat foreign nationals as if that they were home country nationals. As a result, they may experience significant management problems and considerable frustration. The last one is the cultural toughness. This dimension refers to the relationship between the country of assignment and how well an expatriate adjusts to a particular posting. Some countries are much tougher postings than others because their cultures are more unfamiliar and uncomfortable.
As we continue to discuss global human resource management, we're also going to talk about how management development and training programs can increase the value of human capital in the international business sphere. Historically, most international businesses have been more concerned with training than with management development. Plus, they tended to focus their training efforts on preparing home country nationals for foreign postings. However, the recent shift toward greater global competition and the rise of transnational firms have changed this. It became increasingly common for firms to provide general management development programs in addition to training for particular posts. Management development is seen as a tool to help the firm achieve its strategic goals, not only by giving managers the required skill set, but also by helping reinforce the desired culture of the firm and by facilitating the creation of an informal network for sharing knowledge within the multinational enterprise. Since management development programs are designed to increase the overall skill levels of managers, an increasing number of international businesses are using it as a strategic tool. Management development programs help build a unifying corporate culture by socializing new managers into the norms and value systems of the firm. Bringing managers together in one location for extended periods and rotating them through different jobs in several countries help the firm build an informal management network which can be used as a conduit for exchanging valuable performance, enhancing knowledge within the organization, which will then help in solidifying a common culture in the company and coordinating the company's global dispersed operations. Next up is how and why performance appraisal systems might vary across nations. A firm's performance appraisal systems are an important element of its control systems, and control systems are a central component of organizational architecture. Performance appraisal systems are used to evaluate the performance of managers against some criteria that the firm judges to be important for the implementation of strategy and attainment of a globally competitive advantage. However, an intentional bias makes it difficult to evaluate the performance of expatriate managers objectively. Home country managers' appraisals may be biased by distance and by their own lack of experience working abroad. Home office managers are often not aware of what is going on in a foreign operation. Due to such biases, many expatriate managers believe that headquarters management evaluates them unfairly and does not fully appreciate the value of their skills and experience. This could be one reason many expatriates believe a foreign posting does not benefit their careers. On the other hand, several things can reduce bias in the performance appraisal process. First, most expatriates appear to believe more weight should be given to an on-site manager's appraisal than to an off-site manager's appraisal. When the policy is for foreign on-site managers to write performance evaluations, home office managers should be consulted before an on-site manager completes a formal termination evaluation. This gives the home office manager the opportunity to balance what could be a very hostile evaluation based on a cultural misunderstanding. After discussing how and why performance appraisals vary across nations, we're now going to tackle about how and why compensation systems might vary across nations. Two issues are raised in every discussion of compensation practices in an international business. One is how compensation should be adjusted to reflect national differences in economic circumstances and compensation practices. The other issue is how expatriate managers should be paid. From a strategic perspective, the important point is that whatever compensation system is used it should reward managers for taking actions that are consistent with the strategy of the enterprise. National differences in compensation raise a perplexing question for an international business. Should the firm pay executives in different countries according to the prevailing standards in each country? Or should it equalize pay on a global basis? This problem is very real in firms with geocentric staffing policies, country of origin or assignment. On the other hand, as for the issue of how expatriate managers should be paid, the most common approach to expatriate pay is the balance sheet approach. This approach equalizes purchasing power across countries so employees can enjoy the same living standard in their foreign posting that they enjoyed at home. As a result, an expatriate's total compensation package may amount to 3 times what he or she would cost the firm in a home country posting. And because of the high cost of expatriates, many firms have reduced their use of them in recent years. However, a firm's ability to reduce its use of expatriates may be limited, particularly if it is pursuing an ethnocentric or geocentric staffing policy. For the last part, we'll discuss how organized labor can influence strategic choices in international business firms. The HRM function of an international business is typically responsible for international labor relations. From a strategic perspective, the key issue in international labor relations is the degree to which organized labor can limit the choices of an international business. A firm's ability to integrate and consolidate its global operations to realize experience curve and location economies can be limited by organized labor, constraining the pursuit of a transnational or global standardization strategy. Labor unions generally try to get better pay, greater job security, and better working conditions for their members through collective bargaining with management. Unions' bargaining power is derived largely from their ability to threaten to disrupt production, either by a strike or some other form of work protest, such as refusing to work overtime. This threat is credible, however, only insofar as management has no alternative but to employ union labor. Organized labor has responded to the increased bargaining power of multinational corporations by taking 3 actions. First, trying to establish international labor organizations. Second, lobbying for national legislation to restrict multinationals. And third, trying to achieve international regulations on multinationals through such organizations as the United Nations. These efforts have not been very successful. In conclusion, a key issue in international labor relations is the degree to which organized labor can limit the choices available to an international business, and a firm's ability to pursue a transnational or global standardization strategy can be significantly constrained by the actions of labor unions.
Good day, everyone! I would be discussing the last topic for today entitled Accounting and Finance in the International Business. Accounting has often been referred to as the language of business. This language finds expression in profit and loss statements, balance sheets, budgets, investment analysis, and tax analysis. Accounting information is the means by which firms communicate their financial position to the providers of capital. It is also the means by which firms report their income to the government, and also the means by which the firm can evaluate its performance, control its external expenditures, and plan for future expenditures and income. On the other hand, financial management in an international business includes 3 sets of related decisions. First is investment decisions. This is the decisions about what activities to finance. Second is financing decisions. Decisions about how to finance those activities. And 3, money management decisions. Decisions about how to manage the firm's financial resources more efficiently. In an international business, investment, financing, and money management decisions are complicated by the fact that countries have different currencies, different tax regimes, different regulations concerning the flow of capital across their borders, different norms regarding the financing of business activities, different levels of economic and political risk, and so on. National differences in accounting standards. Accounting is shaped by the environment in which it operates. Just as different countries have different political systems, economic systems, and cultures, historically they have also had different accounting systems. Diverse accounting practices were enshrined in national accounting and auditing standards. Accounting standards are rules for preparing financial statements. They define what is useful in accounting information. Auditing standards, on the other hand, specify the rules for performing an audit. The technical process by which an independent person, the auditor, gathers evidence for determining if financial accounts conform to required accounting standards and if they are also reliable. One result of national differences in accounting and auditing standards was a general lack of comparability of financial reports from one country to another. An example, Dutch standards favored the use of current values for replacement assets, and Japanese law generally prohibited revaluation and prescribed the historic cost. Another example is the capitalization of financial leases was required practice in Great Britain but not practice in France. International Accounting Standards. The International Accounting Standards Board, or IASB, has emerged as a major proponent of standardization. The IASB was formed in March 2001 to replace the International Accounting Standards Committee, or IASC, which had been established in 1973. IASB is responsible for developing International Financial Reporting Standards, or IFRS. These were previously known as the International Accounting Standards, or IAS. IASB also promotes the use and application of these standards globally. The IASB has 16 members who are responsible for the formulation of new international financial reporting standards. To issue a new standard, 75% of the 16 members of the board must agree. It can be difficult to get the three-quarters agreement, particularly since members come from different cultures and legal systems. To get around this problem, most IASB statements provide two acceptable alternatives. Another hindrance to development of international accounting standards is that compliance is voluntary. The IASB has no power to enforce its standards. Despite this, support for the IASB and recognition of its standards has been growing. Increasingly, the IASB is regarded as an effective voice for defining acceptable worldwide accounting principles. Japan, for example, began requiring financial statements to be prepared on a consolidated basis after the IASB issued its initial standards on the topic. Japan has also opted for mandatory adoption of the International Financial Reporting Standards. By 2018, more than 100 nations had either adopted the IASB standards or permitted their use to report financial results. Accounting aspects of control systems. One role of corporate headquarters in large complex multinational enterprises is to control subunits within the organization to ensure that they achieve the best possible performance. In the typical firm, the control process is annual and involves three main steps. Head office and subunit management jointly determine subunit goals for the coming year. The second step is throughout the year, the head office monitors subunit performance against the agreed goals. And the third is if a subunit fails to achieve its goals, the head office intervenes in the subunit to learn why the shortfall occurred, taking corrective action when appropriate. The accounting function assumes a critical role in this process. Most of the goals for subunits are expressed in financial terms and are embodied in the subunit's budget for the coming year. The budget is the main instrument of financial control. The budget is typically prepared by the subunit, but it must be approved by headquarters management. During the approval process, headquarters and subunit managers debate the goals that should be incorporated in the budget. Financial management, the investment decision. One role of the financial manager in an international business is to try to quantify the various benefits, costs, and risks that are likely to flow from an investment in a given location. A decision to invest in activities in a given country must consider many economical, political, cultural, and strategic variables. Capital budgeting is a technique financial managers use to try to quantify the benefits, costs, and risks of an investment. This enables top managers to compare, in a reasonably objective fashion, different investment alternatives within and across countries so they can make informed choices about where the firm should invest its scarce financial resources. Capital budgeting for a foreign project uses the same theoretical framework that domestic capital budgeting uses. That is, the firm must first estimate the cash flows associated with the project over time. Financial management, the financing decision. When considering its options for financing, an international business must consider how the foreign investment will be financed. If external financing is required, the firm must decide whether to tap the global capital market for funds or borrow from sources in the host country. If the firm is going to seek external financing for a project, it will want to borrow funds from the lowest cost source of capital available. The cost of capital is typically lower in the global capital market by virtue of its size and liquidity than in many domestic capital markets, particularly those that are small and relatively illiquid. Thus, for example, a U.S. firm making an investment in Denmark may finance the investment by borrowing through the London-based Eurobond market rather than the Danish capital market.